LCSC students of historical research and writing, Professor Eric Martin here, and welcome to the setup for week 7. I'm going to talk just a little bit about what we've done so far and get us set up going forward. Um, Online students, this is mostly for you, okay? If you're coming to class in person. We've made various adjustments in class. We've answered questions in class, that kind of thing. If you're doing this online, we had this discussion when you signed up for it. You know, that this was going to be a whole lot of do a project with some supervision on your own, connected to the class, but the class wasn't specifically designed for online. But I was going to do my best, and here I am doing my best. But this is a drawn out way of also saying um, online students, and this is, in class students too, but online students, if you feel lost, send me an email. All right, let's have a Zoom meeting, get connected. I am working under the assumption, since I haven't heard from you very often, you kind of know what's up. All right, so I hope that's true. I should be more or less caught up on my grading, with one big exception, which is no, I should be caught up on my grading. Um, I graded your project proposals earlier in the week. There is some feedback attached to your project proposal, I hope, in the form of it's not really a video, but it's a screen capture with some audio. Here's the deal on that. Don't respond to it, because I don't get a notification that you've done that. If you've got questions about it, send something to me through the inbox, or if there's a way that I can set up a notification, let me know, and we can talk about that. But for the most part, things looked fine. Okay, most part things looked fine. Let's talk about what we're doing this week, where we're going. And then we can see if we need to talk about anything else. All right. I'll probably set things up for this week and next week at the same time, since things are more or less the same. This video will be here when you're looking at this. Okay, research projects. Thank you, Barbara in particular, and Lauren. Other online students, I'd like to see your research projects listed in here. Online students particularly, I'd like to see you continue to build this. I know that I haven't laid this part of the project out with a lot of detail, but I'd like to see your ideas progressing, using this as a bit of a project journal. I don't know if that's the right word, but something to those lines as you revise it. Just throw it a little addendum on there. This ought to be something where I can go in and get an idea about where you're at. And if there's not a lot there, I wonder, okay? General discussions, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of general discussion going on. It seems like maybe the in-class students feel pretty busy with in-class stuff. That's fine. Reading discussions for the online students. This ought to all look real familiar, right? Barbara's going to guide us through Turabians 11 and 12. Those chapters may or may not be super enlightening at this point. One of them is about sentence revision. Take a look at them. If things capture your attention, awesome. You don't have to feel compelled to force it. Gaddis chapter 6 and Gaddis chapter 5, chaos and complexity, and also looking at causation, contingency, and counterfactuals. That'll be Emmeline and Lauren. We'll get the discussion moving on there, and we'll finish up these chapters this week. I'll come back to that in just a second. Your big assignment for the week, is a outline discussion on chapters 5 and 6. But online students, your mission is to convince me you read it. All right. So just because it says that Lauren is responsible for that discussion, she's responsible for making the discussion happen. But I expect to see the rest of y'all involved in it. Okay. And when you don't know what to do, you should be getting together book analysis number 2, right? Oh yeah, I guess that's the part of the grading I haven't finished yet. I got to get your first book analysis. I just got those yesterday. All right, book analysis number 2, due March 13th. So you should have that book figured out and working on it. Let's just talk about next week while I'm here, because next week is basically just going to be a repeat of this week, same kind of deal. All right, the week 8 discussions for the online students, Turabian 13 and 14, finishing up the Gaddis readings, outline discussion, focusing on the book analysis. And then, and I don't think I have week 9 all laid out. I don't think. Yeah. Week 9, your book analysis is due. And then week 10, I need to sort through things a little bit. Then we'll have spring break. Then we'll start talking about presentations. And you should be at the spot where you're really thinking about your projects at this point. Let's talk about that for a minute. What spot should you be at this point in week 7? You should be at the spot where you did that first book review and you had a few epiphany moments. Now, those epiphany moments may have been, wow, this ain't the book. Or those epiphany moments may have been, okay, now I understand the other stuff I'm looking for. Okay? So, hopefully, where you're at is you're at the spot where you got more than you can handle and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. If you're at that spot, I'm not worried about you. Because that means you've got information, that means you've got data. Now you got to categorize it, sort it, kind of figure out what you think it means, figure out a way to put it into a historiographic essay, figure out a way to put it into a presentation. That's the trick. Now, I want to talk about the trick for just a second. The trick for a lot of this, too, is that this is a 200 level undergraduate course. I'm expecting some level of work out of y'all. All right? So, online students, right? We're looking at something like 9 hours of work a week. That'd be a 3-hour class plus 2 hours of homework for every 1 hour of class. That's, kind of the standard. I want my 9 hours. But if you're putting 18 hours in, you're putting in too much, right? You've got other things to do, other classes, other responsibilities, other life issues. So figure out how you're going to get 9 hours in. Now, the 9 hours, as far as I'm concerned, includes, reading Gaddis, and it includes developing your essays, and it includes researching. And some weeks when you don't have as much to do, that 9 hours needs to be focused on your project. But that's more or less the time commitment we're talking about. So here's the deal. You guys, for your annotated bibliographies, we're told to get something like a dozen different sources on a particular project. I do not expect you to read a dozen books on your topic for a 200 level undergraduate course. All right? What I expect you to do is to collect a dozen, maybe 2 dozen, because the more you have, the easier it is. And spend some time skimming each one. Spend 30 minutes with each book to get a sense about, should I read this book? How's it going to work out? You're going to spend a lot of time in this class skimming books, reading introductions, reading book reviews, trying to get an idea if it's the right book so that you can spend your time focused on other books. Okay, or not on other books, but on the key books. That's what you're looking for. Don't forget journal articles. Those are shorter. They can also help. They can provide good historiographic essays. And also keep in mind that sometimes the issue, if really what you're looking at is, you want to focus on, whatever, Viking history, all right? It seems like someone in this class is doing Viking history. You're focusing on Viking history, and you really want to focus on historical interpretations of Vikings as marauders versus Vikings as farmers. Sometimes that farmer thing, that's just one chapter in a book, and that's cool. Compare that one chapter to someone else's one chapter. All right. Again, take a look at some of the historiographic examples that I provided for you. Okay. Book reviews. You're focusing on the book reviews. You're focusing on breaking those things down. Let's talk real briefly before I think I'm done, really. But let's talk for a moment about the Gaddis book, because when I look through some of your Gaddis outlines, they are at different ends of the scale. Some of them are real detailed, real specific, quite good. And others, I'm not going to say that they're not good, but I do wonder whether, you gave up before you understood the point. All right, so let me talk about that for just a second. I get it that the Gaddis reading is different, and that if you are the kind of person that the study of history means, I want to read a book where somebody told me what happened, and then I want to read another book where somebody told me what happened, and then I want to read another book where somebody told me what happened, and now I have these three sets of, three frameworks for what happened. The Gaddis book could be hard, right? Because he is getting into the mechanics of how those books were created. And if we think about our historical studies as, sort of like scientific experiments, Gaddis is getting into the issue of, how do you know that you used the right type of microscope for this? You used a microscope. Should you have used a telescope? You applied heat. Should you have frozen it? You get the idea. He's actually looking at how the experiment is set up. And so that's where he gets into these issues for this week in chapter 5, right? Looking at issues of chaos and complexity. And this idea, he uses the example in this particular case, looking at a traffic jam, about how an individual driver's behavior in the traffic jam might be predictable, but the entire traffic jam itself is not. So like the various elements in the system, you might be able to isolate the behavior, but the system itself is doing something different. And I realized that sometimes what does any of this have to do with history? And it's all about this issue of trying to sort out the stuff in chapter 6 about how do you know what caused what to happen. Just because something happened first doesn't mean it caused the next thing, right? So trying to look at this issue of how do you determine the relationship between the different vehicles in the traffic jam. So, you guys, the point is, do that reading, enjoy it, enjoy some philosophy, enjoy some thinking about historical components. See if you can apply some of the terminology, see if you can apply some of the rationalization, some of the reasoning to your projects. But don't get too bogged down in the weeds. All right? Don't get too bogged down in the weeds. He's trying to help you see some of the action behind the scenes in the books that you're reading for your projects. Let me use one more metaphor and then I'll be done here. The books that you're reading for your projects, many of your books read like a play. You know, Act 1, this thing happens. Act 2, this thing happens. Act 3, this thing happens. Act 4, into the play. And what Gaddis is trying to do is he's not even worried about the play. He's looking at how the person in the balcony operates the spotlight, gets you to look at certain parts of the stage and not see the other things going on in the other part of the stage while, you know, the stage hands are switching things out and you're not supposed to see that. Or why the set was set up the way it was. Why are we using this particular set? Is this, you know, are we using this particular living room set because it's the only one that was available and somebody just grabbed it? Or is there something going on with this set that's supposed to be impacting the way we think about things, right? So Gaddis is trying to get you to think about the play from the point of view of a stagehand and how the play could be different depending on how the lighting might be done differently or the stage props might be done differently, or if a scriptwriter had got to put that fifth act in that he was told can't go in there because of the time, right? So anyway, this is just a drawn out way of saying don't get too caught up in the weeds. Just think about some of the broader issues that Gaddis is bringing up. All right. Maybe I shoot a video for week 8, maybe I don't, because honestly, it is exactly the same story. All right, exactly the same story is what we're doing. We're finishing up chapters 7 and 8. You guys should be focused on your book analysis. That stuff's due March 13th. You got any questions about that, send me an email. Let's set up a video appointment. Doesn't even have to be a video appointment. I'm on Zoom a lot, even when I don't send out the emails. You're always welcome to try it out. Having said that, enjoy your historical studies and let me know if you have any questions.